Horizontes was a 2017 Night Cities Challenge winner that aimed to connect two underrepresented communities in Wichita, Kansas, the predominantly Latino North End and historically African-American Northeast neighborhoods. Today, we're here with CHRMEX for this Horizontes conversation. CHRMEX was one of the artists for our Summer Mural Jam in 2018 and created a mural that's located on the No More Theater, located at 130 East 21st Street. CHRMEX was born in Torreon, Coahuila, Mexico, and migrated to Arkansas, United States in 1994. With a focus on social issues, he is a visual artist whose mediums range from graphic design, screen printing, mural painting, canvas painting, photography, sculpture, and graffiti. He's active in his community and is an organizer of cultural events, having painted all through the United States and Mexico, from Chiapas, Mexico City, Juarez, New York City, all through the South, and Portland, to name a few. He is a co-founding member of the art collective Movimiento Hunabku and member of Colectivo Resiste. Let's do this. Welcome, CHRMEX.
Hey, how are you doing? Thank you.
So, CHRMEX, let's start with, what was it about this project and that call for artists that brought you in originally?
Basically the whole uniting the community, and how you all took a community that wasn't downtown, it was more like a marginalized community that needed to be renewed or whatever, but not in a commercial sense, like keeping values and community and traditions alive. So I think the way y'all went about it was really important, and that really called to me. Me being a migrant, being in a place that's I migrated to in the 90s, so that aspect of having more community, more culture in communities is very important. So very much support that, and that called to me.
Absolutely. Let's take a look at your mural, and let's see if you can give us kind of a mural to text description of your mural. It was titled Por los caminos de la esperanza, and here it is.
Yeah, Por los caminos de la esperanza. When I drew this sketch, I was working with a migrant resource in Coahuila, in Coahuila, Mexico. And I was getting a lot of stories of migrants that would migrate from Central America through Mexico. And the place that they stay is a house of migrants in Saltillo, Mexico. And what I was doing with them is I was doing their graphic design work, like posters and things like that. So they would send me their stories, and then I would translate into posters. And from their stories, and I created this mural, which is basically a collage of stories told. And I think it's important as a muralist that we tell our stories. That's what murals are, they tell the stories that of our people, because we're not in the history books as tradition has it or whatever. But with murals, you can impact everybody from a kid to an old person, to no matter what, right? So the story of this mural is about migration, and how migrants from South America, Central America, have to cross Mexico to get to the United States. And they do it various ways, walking or taking the train, etc. Right? So the one I depicted is taking the train, which is the bestia, which they basically just hop on a train with their hopes and dreams to reach the north. And of course, some make it, some don't. But this is just kind of telling those stories. So you have the bestia starting on the right side, so excuse me, on the left side, and is going through the right, and it transforms into Quetzalcoatl. And then Quetzalcoatl turns back into the sky and is in return blessing them in their journey. And you see the different migrants on the train. So they travel on top of the train, riding it on the side. And then you see also all the people that walk, they have to cross the deserts, like in various stages of that journey. So when you cross Mexico to the United States, you have to cross the desert, so you have to walk it. And that's some of those depictions there. Within the details of the people around the train, you can see people walking with their kids, women walking alone. So during this journey, there's a lot of obstacles they gotta come through with the law, with vandals, with with elements themselves. So in a way, yes, there is all these obstacles, but also there's people helping the migrants reach their goal, like the Las Patronas, which is a group of women that organize the community to feed the migrants. So they will make food and water, and they'll put them in bags, and they will go by the train. And when they pass them, they just throw them to the migrants so they can drink and eat, or give them shelter if they need it as well. So that's kind of just depicting some of that here. And it's just a story that a lot of migrants, especially South America, Mexico, Central America, when we get here, we don't know what to do sometimes. We don't know the language, and we try to assimilate. So just the fact that in a wall is your story, it gives you that empowerment that, yes, it was worth it that it exists. And, I'm here. So it gives us a more sense of identity. When in a lot of cases, we lose that identity trying to assimilate something that we're not, or just to get by. So to avoid different situations. So I think that's why it was important to paint this story for me.
Right, absolutely. Will you talk just a little bit more about La Bestia? For those who don't know, can you talk about what it has done and what it is symbolized?
So La Bestia, the name itself means the beast, right? It's a big metal beast, a big train. There's a tracks that run all the way from south of Mexico to the borders in the north. So they run all through Mexico. It symbolizes hope, and it symbolizes fear, I guess, because it's a hope to a better future to the patches to the north, right? But it also, again, it comes with a lot of dangers that you have to overcome to get by. So I think that's what the bestia means. The beast is like you gotta tame the beast to reach your future, I guess, right?
Right. Wow, thank you. Let's talk about the actual production of the mural during Summer Mural Jam. So this was 3 years ago in 2018, but let's talk about some of the highlights, some of the difficulties, right? We can see that it is spread across 3 walls. Let's just talk about that actual production.
I think the production went really well, other than the heat. I think the heat was the biggest obstacle to overcome, because everything was perfect, the whole event, painting next to other painters and that I never met before. So getting to meet other artists, meeting the community around there, everybody was just beautiful, everybody was treated like at home, but not just you guys, the organizers, but the people that live in the community, which, that for me, that's what the biggest reward, when you're painting somebody's in all different communities and people receive you with open arms. That's just the best, it's better than any monetary value you can put on it. And that's why the reasons I keep painting. So as far as like obstacles, other than the heat, it went smoothly. I think you guys had all the materials needed. It was prime and ready when we got there. You guys had scaffolds. So other than just like getting to work, man, everything went really smoothly. When I started painting it just with the skeleton of the piece, and then started putting more and more layers. I work in layers, so I put with different colors. I try to manipulate the colors and shapes to create volume and form. So that's kind of what we did, and then adding some more details later on and outlining. But overall, I think the production went smoothly. It took like three days to do, and then we had time to do another one. I had a blast. Like I said, the food around there was great. So we had no need for anything really. Other than the sun, man, the sun kind of killed us. So just getting up early and painting at night really. But I had a blast. Production was great. Materials were excellent, like top notch. Yes, I had 94 cans, so that was cool. And then you primed it and then you sealed it so to last longer. other than maybe manipulating a little bit of the original design to fit the three walls, just to make it flow better. I think the initial sketch format is there, but definitely I did manipulate a little to fit the space better. But other than that, I think it went smoothly.
Right. Originally, you were on a single wall, and then it was split among these three. But even the way that you split it, it just looks awesome. So you did this all with spray paint, correct?
Yes.
Okay. So do you want to talk about that process just a little bit? You touched on it, but will you talk us through that process of working with the spray paint, how you started it, and how you get such fine details with the spray paint can?
I think the trick, to trick the eye, really, play with color. And so first I start out with just drawing the skeleton. So I figure out where everything's gonna go. So just by lines and circles and figures, you know, just kind of place where everything is gonna go, and then start working that out. Like first I started with the train. So I did a single swoop across it to show the movement of the mural, of the train going. So you can, and then on the corner on the left hand side, on the right hand, when the Quetzalcoatl comes back up, you know, that took some challenging and also like perspective work. So it's trying to get that movement right. It all starts with the base, you know, with your skeleton of the drawing. It's like anything, you have a good foundation, you can build it up later on. So I like to work like that. So after mapping out my shapes and the flow of the mural, I started doing the shapes, like the rectangles of the train, and giving it the perspective on it. And then I have put heads and pretty much blobs where the bodies were gonna go. And after I had everything mapped out, I started putting colors down with the background. I think I started, you primed it black, yeah, right? It was primed black, I believe. So we did the sky first, the reds and all that. And later on, we started with the mid colors, just kind of base colors where the skins and the clothes and everything was. And Quetzalcoatl, all the colors, you know, starting the mapping out, so the greens, the yellows, where everything was gonna go. After we did the base coats, came back with mid-tones, try to give it more volume, push some of those colors back and forward. So it gives it movement throughout, and you can kind of make it pop out some of the colors. After the mid-tones came in with more highlights and correcting my line work in some places. And then after that, my line work, the black lining, and then I came back with some whites and highlights. And then after everything was kind of set up and done, came back in with the filigree kind of thing to give it more movement, more of a mystical or surreal feeling, like a dream kind of thing. So it kind of tells more the stories than it's more the stories than the people itself. It's like the collection of it. So, and then how it's in 3 panels, kind of like you know, the first is just the people migrating. The middle is the woman with the kid carrying the hopes and dreams in the back, most surreal. And then it's Quetzalcoatl. So it kind of gives it a triptych kind of thing to it, which kind of enjoyed that, you know, like it wasn't in the initial, but as it evolved more organically, I think it came out with a good solution for that. And yeah, after that, just manipulating like different details, cutbacks, and fixing the line work pretty much.
Wow. Do you have a favorite part of this mural, a part that you're most proud of?
The Quetzalcoatl part, that part was really cool. Doing the what you call the caracol that comes out of his mouth, which means like message, like word of mouth. That's what that means, you know, blessing. I like that a lot. And just like that whole area right there, I don't know, with the reds and then the greens and the yellows like pop out. And I think on its own, it's a cool piece, you know, but I think each different panel can act as individually or collectively. So I like that.
That is so true, right? You do have the 3 different worlds, but all connected. Do these images show up in your artwork in your other artwork that you do? Are these reoccurring themes in your art?
Yes. A lot of my work, I touch on immigration and social rights, because I think it's important to tell those stories as a muralist, as a storyteller, more than an artist, because that's what we really are. We tell stories through visuals, and we communicate ideas, right? Yeah, it's definitely a recurring theme in my work, and I think it's very important to tell those stories, because they're the stories of my parents, the stories of my peers, of people that came before me. So I think it's very important to tell those stories, so we don't forget where we come from, one, and also all the obstacles we overcame to be where we are, and we don't take those things for granted. Even if you don't like it, when you look at them, if you don't agree with them, or if you do agree with them, whichever the case it is, it sparks that wheel turning in your mind. It makes you think, it makes you question things, and that's the minimum that we can expect from our murals. And that's with that we're getting a lot again. So we're telling the stories of our trials and tribulations that will happen, so people can learn from them, and don't repeat some things, and just question everyday life, and so we can be better in the future. So I think that's the thing, that the important part, that even if you're on your way to work, you can look at it and seeing some color instead of just a gray concrete, it makes your day better, or it makes you think about your past, or your future, or whatever it may be. So yes, sparking that communication with the community alone, it already makes you think. So that's a gain.
And it's interesting that really right there in the intersection, a lot of people who would be stopped right here are stopped looking at train tracks, and they're stopped looking at this train that stops them in traffic so frequently. So just adding to that thought pattern, right, and that reflection there. Let's talk about some of those kind of learning moments and impactful moments from Summer Mural Jam while you were here. And maybe we can talk about how the community received this mural as well while you were here.
Well, just hearing everybody talk, pass by, and they ask me like, "Hey, why are you painting that?" or "What is that?" Or they will tell me their stories like, "Oh yeah," or like same thing, or "I know somebody that did," or "I did." And people, bringing us food just because they appreciate it of what we were doing. I think it was a beautiful experience. Just what's the word? Combining with the community, and then from that, getting more work, because they like work to get more. They wanted more on their buildings, they want something on their buildings. So that's a compliment in itself. The whole experience there, was staying with you guys at your guys' house, meeting everybody, the plaza festivities that happened. Everything was great, and then the train being there and the silos. It was a great experience for me, man. I learned a lot from you guys. The organizational part, like different ways to go about doing summer jams. That is just not, about consumerism and getting sponsors and all these things, and just like paint. So I really like that idea, that the Horizontes mural jam, the summer mural jam, was focused on the community itself there, and not around a more consumerist type of event, like other jams, like more popular jams or whatever. The theme of it, the artists that y'all got were all people of color for the most part, I believe. Latinos, and I think Asians, because in the neighborhood is like it's a Filipino, I believe. Yeah, and like a lot of Mexicans and Latinos in the area. So I really enjoyed that aspect of it, that it was a different type of event, and it really set the tone for the whole week, the whole time we were there, in a cultural way, in a social way, and just kind of touching on those values, and how it enriches the community. And we take it for granted because we get overseen, on a day to day. So recognizing the people and the community and with this work and revitalizing the area, which is beautiful architecture there. I think it's very important, and some of the things that Horizontes accomplished, so props for that. Yeah, and then y'all had like a world record Guinness for the silo, and then all these top-notch artists that were there and with painting there. I think it was a really successful event.
So you did mention that you had some extra time and were able to paint, and so you did get a wall on the other side of the tracks. So let's pull that up and look at that for just a moment. So this was the second mural that you did, the Walk with Pride. It was on the side of a boarded up building across the street from the Dunbar Theater. So your work was at both of these theaters, right? So again, let's kind of start with the process of this. And yeah, start with that.
Yeah, so we did finish that faster than anticipated. You guys had another wall, and pretty much had to like freestyle this one into the idea with Walk with Pride. Again, taking pride in yourself as a person, as a human, as a member of your community, living with purpose, acting, deliberately. So Walk with Pride, it's taking back, take back your community. It all starts at the table. It all starts with your person. So if you feel proud of yourself, then the next person next to you, your kids are gonna feel proud of they are. So right here we had the lions, which is a really regal animal. And behind it you have the pride, and in the back the cubs, right? So like lead by example. So walk with, not necessarily just be proud of macho, but like be humble and like lead by example. That's the strength. Be all these different things that a proud person or can portray in their community. So I think that's the message with this mural. And we got the idea from talking to the owner of the building. He's like, I want some lions. So we got the idea from talking to them, from the conversation. We came up with this concept, and I think it came out pretty well.
Right, and it's that too, talking to the community, getting them involved, so that there is really what he once seen, and just what a message that you brought, especially right across the street from that theater. You want to talk about process? So the previous one with La Bestia, you started with La Bestia. Did you start here with the same idea, starting with the building, then the lions, and then the Walk with Pride?
Yeah, so pretty much start with the background, and then actually first with the skeleton, with the perspective, get that perspective, the one perspective on their right. So all those all the buildings, simplify it, make simple blocks, squares, and put a 3D on there, base coat, then some flair to it to give it more pizzazz or whatever. And then after that, the lions, again, making it feel like with depth, added more depth to it, and just the warm acting, the warm colors, the reds with the cool greens and blues from the shadows and the highlights. This one was a really fun one. It was kind of loose, more loose process to it. So it was really fun. I enjoyed it, especially with working around there. There's a different community altogether, a different neighborhood altogether. I think it's a more African American prominent neighborhood, and again, it's telling stories. It's all about storytelling, I think.
Absolutely. The sky looks like that was really fun to do. Can you talk just a moment about how you accomplished the sky there?
So cutting back the greens and the blues by the angle of the spray cap. So you angle it to one side and it sprays to the white side, and then you come back with on top of it with the other color and cut it, and then back and forth, and you just get this really cool effect. And then on the brickwork on it, same concept, you know, base color and then a highlight and some mist to give it more depth and like the shadows. So just pretty much tricking the eye with color, you know, like making it think it's brick, it's just blobs of paint.
Mm-hmm. So you have a mural both in the north end and in the northeast neighborhood. And so our students, our art students, our young people are seeing these murals that, right, were just previously empty walls. Will you speak to these future artists, current artists, and give them some advice as they move forward in their careers and their artistic personalities?
To trust themselves, you know, trust your process. Everybody is different. Don't compare yourself to another artist. Each artist has a different path, and you're not on the same level. So don't compare it to yourself to anybody else. You're your own artist, so trust that. As far as getting walls and you know, waiting for the next big gig, it's not gonna happen. It's never a next big gig. It's just a constant work. So it's just keep hustle, you know, keep hustling the walls, you know, by every means necessary. If you gotta go get a grant, get a grant. If you have to get a wall, you know, go talk to the neighborhood, go knock on some doors, you know, get those walls. Perseverance, you know, that's the name of the game. And always you know, keep learning, be the student of your craft, always, because you're never gonna stop learning technique, colors, materials, etc. You know, it's a never ending process, which is learning, and it's a beautiful process if you enjoy it and when you do it, you know. So definitely take pride and be honest about you and your work, and whichever medium it is or whatever. If you know you want to be like a social artist or abstract artist, it doesn't matter. Just be honest with yourself and your process and your work, and it should be all right, I think.
Two more questions to pull from that. You have done a lot of work around social movements, right? You've done work around immigrant rights. You've done work with Black Lives Matter. Why is it important for you to involve that in your craft? Why is that content? Why is it important to tell those stories?
Because nobody else. If we don't, nobody else knows this. Something that needs to be done. It's important to tell those stories so they won't get forgotten. You've seen what happened with the Black Lives Matter, and how important art is in any movement, whether it's propaganda, whether it is to sell a Coke or to sell an idea or whatever, you know. It's propaganda, it's art, you know, creativity. So manipulate the mind. So we counteract that with arts, you know. It's you know, you know, we have enough from the other side, so it's important to paint this, you know, to go out and take a stand, to use your resources. You know, I'm not a lawyer, so I'm not in the courts fighting this. So what I know how to paint, so I take my platform and use it as best of my ability to counteract those things. You know, those things the changes I want to see in my community. You know, take a stand and be proactive. Don't wait till somebody come and tell you to do it, or don't wait till somebody falls into the hole so you can patch it up, kind of thing. You know, definitely. You gotta take action. You can't be dormant. You can't be just texting on your phone and you know, posting some meme about social issues and how bad it is somewhere else, or you know, it starts in your neighborhood. You know, walk around and pick up the trash in your neighborhood. You know, from that act alone, you know, it already betters it. So everybody can do their part, whichever little grain of salt it is, whether it's picking up a bottle from the street, to painting a mural, to going out and being an activist, organizing the community, or being a lawyer, doing all these things, you know, like education, educate yourself so you don't get manipulated. That's pretty much, I think that's what you gotta do. I do it because I think I have to. I feel that I have to do it. It's not like I don't know. It's just that like the other day I painted over a racial slur. It took longer to read all the comments on Facebook than it did to paint it. You know what I mean? So just be proactive about your work. Be honest and take a stand for your beliefs.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, to finish this out, the essential question of the project, what's on your horizon? So 3MEX, what is on your horizon?
Okay. Now I'm working with my studio, which is dedicated visual art studio. Since Horizontes, I quit my main job, my day job as a graphic designer, and done full time the studio work, which we do murals, graphic design, sign, screen printing. But we also do a community involvement. You know, we take resources. Like I said, and be are proactive about that. So it's you know, it's you gotta give a little so you can get some more. So my horizons is continuing developing the studio and doing more work like this, and maybe get to travel some more and do some more murals. Didn't get to touch more a lot on the Black Lives Matter that happened here in Little Rock. We started a whole thing started when the George Floyd thing happened. We went down there and painted George Floyd. When it happened, you know, I was frustrated. I was mad. I didn't know what to do. You know, I felt like I could do nothing. So I took my platform, which is I'm a painter, graffiti artist. So I just went to the streets and painted his face in protest, you know, because we won't stand for that. I didn't want to go out and protest and like throw a brick through the banks because that's just gonna escalate, you know, something that we don't need. We don't want to destroy our communities, you know. We want to build upon them, and so we just painted the walls, gray concrete walls that you know they used to smell. You walk by there, and there used to be like overgrown bushes, and you know, smell like feces around there because you know it wasn't safe for a young lady to go by there because you know she might get mugged or you know something worse than that. So after we painted there, the whole Black Lives Matter was taking up, coming up, and all that protest was happening. So it just kind of snowballed. I had no idea it was going to take that, become what it did. So when it happened, you know, we did it with no permission from anybody. The community loved it. Everybody got behind, and more artists started reaching out. To paint something on it because they believed this was important and the injustices that were happening. So it turned into from one painting to the whole bridge being painted on both sides by over 20 artists, you know, and every single thing painted there has to do with social justice. That's the only thing, you know, it has to do with social justice. And from there it grew. I thought what a cool thing about it was that it was all grassroots. Like again, we started out just taking our scrap paint. You know, I painted George Floyd green because I had a can of green paint. You know, I had a bucket of green paint, so it was green. The Martin Luther King we painted it's all different colors because it was all scrap paint. So, like I said, by all means necessary, you just do what you have to do. We have scraps. Later on, people started donating. You know, people saw us painting and they liked it. We put it on Instagram and different social medias. People started coming by, bringing us pizzas, water. We did some organizing and some fundraisers, and we got some scaffolding for it. Then the more donations, we got more and more paint. So it's all been like a community effort because the city we haven't gotten any grant or anything from anybody. It's all been the people, because not even the city, it's just the people, the community, and that's the beautiful thing about it. And now, you know, you walk down there and the community, the neighborhood goes out there and mows and cuts the trees, you know, so it's proper. One of the neighbors own a company that does lawn and everything. So they pretty much adopted the street and they go clean it and sweep it, you know, so that kind of sparked the whole pride in your neighborhood, you know, from a place, from a underpass that nobody went to. People that lived there blocks away having gone through there over years ago. You know, they avoided that pass. Now you have people from all over the states coming through just to see those murals, which is crazy in itself. And from there, you know, it made me realize how important muralism is. I always had an idea of how important it is, you know, from reading text and seeing different murals and mural movements in, you know, different places. But this firsthand experience just overwhelmed me, and like it just blew my mind pretty much, and it just reaffirmed to me that that what we're doing is important and we can't stop.
Absolutely, that we can't stop. Well, CHMEX, again, thank you for your work with Walk with Pride. Thank you for your work with Por los Caminos de la Esperanza. We thoroughly appreciate it, and our community is better for having it. Again, this was CHMEX for this Horizontes conversation. CHMEX was one of the artists for our Summer Mural Jam in 2018 and created these two murals. Thank you, CHMEX. We greatly appreciate it.